Hi, passionate Rangers FC fans. Welcome to Rangers Update, your dedicated source for all things Rangers. Before we dive in, we want to express our gratitude for your unwavering support. If you bleed blue, don't forget to subscribe, smash the like button, and let's strengthen our community. Now, let's get into the latest updates. A hearty welcome to our new followers. Your backing means the world to us. WATP, let's get to the news. The Scottish footballing scene is buzzing with tension once again, and at the very heart of it all, we find Rangers locked in a heated confrontation with the governing body. The SFA has decided to come down hard on the club following a string of critical comments directed at match officials, and the fallout is creating the kind of storm that Scottish football thrives on. Supporters across the country have been waiting to see what punishment might be handed down, and now that it has arrived, the focus has shifted to how Rangers will respond. The decision by the SFA is seen by some as a necessary stance in defense of referees, who have been under increasing scrutiny this season, while others argue that it only fuels a narrative of double standards and silencing one of the nation's most passionate fan bases. In Ibrox, the corridors are said to be echoing with conversations not about tactics or transfer rumors, but about legal letters, carefully worded statements, and how to strike back at what they see as an institutional attack. The drama is set, the stage is alive with anticipation, and the next move belongs entirely to the Rangers hierarchy. The criticism that sparked this disciplinary action was no mere passing remark, but a direct and forceful accusation that officials had consistently disadvantaged Rangers at pivotal moments during recent fixtures. Club representatives highlighted decisions they claimed altered the balance of crucial matches, from disallowed goals that seemed perfectly legitimate to penalties not given at moments when the crowd was screaming for justice. It was a boiling pot of frustration that finally overflowed, and in truth, many fans applauded the boldness of the statements, arguing that someone needed to say what had long been whispered in pubs and shouted from the stands. But the SFA viewed this not as constructive feedback, but as a direct assault on the integrity of the refereeing corps, something they could not let slide without appearing weak. Thus, the punishment arrived, wrapped not just in the language of discipline, but in the undertones of a warning, a reminder that no club, no matter how powerful, can undermine the authority of those tasked with enforcing the rules. Yet what the governing body may not have anticipated is how fiery the response from Rangers is likely to be, with whispers of an explosive statement growing louder with every hour that passes. Inside the fan community, the reaction has been nothing short of electric. For some, this feels like the SFA once again flexing its muscles in a way that seems disproportionately aimed at Rangers, reigniting debates that have burned for decades about bias, perception, and who truly holds influence in Scottish football. Supporters are not taking the news quietly. Message boards are alive with speculation about what form the club's response will take, whether it will be a measured but scathing press release or a full-blown legal battle that drags the whole affair into the public courts. The atmosphere is thick with a mix of anger and anticipation, as fans are not merely interested in football scores anymore, but in the politics that shape their beloved game. For rival fans, of course, the situation provides endless ammunition, with jibes about Rangers always painting themselves as victims already flying across social media. Yet beneath the banter lies a serious question. Can the SFA genuinely afford to keep entering into these bruising confrontations with its most powerful clubs, or is this a moment where both sides risk destabilizing the very fabric of the Scottish game? The boardroom at Ibrox is believed to be a hive of activity, with meetings stretching into the night as directors and advisors weigh up the potential consequences of different strategies. Should they choose to escalate the matter, Rangers could push for transparency around refereeing standards, demanding accountability that could leave the SFA exposed in ways it might not be prepared to handle. On the other hand, a carefully worded but restrained response might allow the club to signal strength without fanning the flames too high. Yet sources close to the club suggest that restraint is unlikely, and that the feeling within the leadership is one of deep frustration, bordering on outright defiance. The phrase explosive response is being whispered with increasing frequency, suggesting that Rangers are not just looking to defend themselves, but to turn the tables, to force the SFA onto the back foot in a way that changes the conversation entirely. For a club that thrives on pride, history, and a fierce sense of identity, the idea of backing down without a fight seems unthinkable, and the wider Scottish footballing community is waiting with bated breath for the first salvo to be fired. The stakes are higher than they might appear at first glance, because what is really at play here is more than a simple disagreement over refereeing criticism. It is about power, about who sets the boundaries of discussion in Scottish football, and about whether clubs have the freedom to speak out without fear of punishment. If Rangers are able to successfully challenge the SFA's decision, it could embolden other clubs to be more outspoken, potentially shifting the balance of discourse in the league. Conversely, if the governing body holds firm and crushes any resistance, it will send a chilling message to everyone else that dissent comes at a heavy price. Beyond the politics, there's also the question of how this affects the players and the manager, who are inevitably dragged into the media whirlwind every time the club and the authorities lock horns. While they would prefer to focus on the pitch, the headlines now swirl with stories of punishment, appeals, and impending statements, creating a distraction that could ripple into performances. Thus, what begins as a disciplinary issue threatens to morph into something that touches every aspect of Rangers season. For now, the silence from Ibrox is deafening, and that silence speaks volumes. It is the quiet before the storm, the gathering of breath before a roar that could shake Scottish football to its core. Everyone knows the response is coming. The only question is when and how it will land. Will Rangers unleash a detailed dossier of evidence aimed at embarrassing the SFA and discrediting referees? Will they take the fight to a courtroom, forcing a legal confrontation that could drag on for months? Or will they drop a verbal bombshell that inflames public opinion and rallies their fan base in a way that makes backing down impossible? Whatever the chosen strategy, one thing is clear. This is not the end of the story, but the beginning of a saga that will dominate the headlines for weeks to come. Scottish football thrives on drama, and this latest clash promises to deliver it in spades, with the potential to reshape not just the relationship between Rangers and the SFA, but the entire culture of accountability and criticism within the game itself. Behind closed doors, the Rangers' leadership is said to be meticulously crafting the words of their response, aware that every phrase will be dissected not just by fans but by media, rivals, and the SFA itself. The whispers suggest the statement will not merely be a defense, but an offensive, aimed at exposing inconsistencies in the way the governing body applies discipline across the league. Already, examples are being lined up of other managers and clubs who have spoken critically about officiating without facing the same severity of punishment, a narrative that could paint the SFA as selective in its enforcement. In truth, that argument resonates with a portion of the footballing public who have long felt the rules are bent depending on the badge on a shirt. The longer the wait, the more anticipation builds, and the more it feels like Rangers are preparing a broadside rather than a token protest. It is the kind of tension that makes football in Scotland so much more than 90 minutes on the pitch. As the political theater off, it often proves just as captivating and divisive as anything that happens on the grass. Adding fuel to the fire are the voices of ex-players and pundits, many of whom are eager to give their 2 cents on the escalating saga. Some argue that Rangers are entirely justified in defending themselves with all available means, framing the punishment as a provocation that left the club with no option but to strike back. Others, however, accuse the club of arrogance, suggesting that constant complaints about officiating only serve to deflect attention from shortcomings on the pitch. The media circus thrives on such polarization, amplifying every opinion into a headline and every rumor into a talking point. Meanwhile, supporters are left to interpret the silence from their club as evidence that something big is brewing, with speculation ranging from leaked dossiers to fiery press conferences. What makes it all the more gripping is that no one, not even those closest to the story, knows exactly what shape the response will take. But what is guaranteed is that when the statement finally drops, it will dominate the airwaves, setting the tone for weeks of heated debate, accusations, and counter-accusations across the Scottish football landscape. Rival clubs are also paying close attention, because how this plays out could have wider consequences for them as well. If Rangers succeed in framing the SFA as inconsistent or overly authoritarian, it might embolden other sides to push back when they feel hard done by. In a league where officiating decisions are debated almost as much as goals and tactics, that could open the floodgates to a new culture of public criticism that the SFA will struggle to contain. On the other hand, if the governing body emerges victorious and Rangers' defiance fizzles out, it could cement the SFA's control over discourse in Scottish football for the foreseeable future. This battle is therefore not just about Rangers versus the authorities, but about precedent, about the long-term balance of power between clubs and the institution that oversees them. For smaller clubs, who often feel their voices are ignored, the outcome could signal whether speaking out is worth the risk or whether silence is the safer, if less satisfying, option. In this sense, the Rangers saga is shaping up to be a test case with ramifications that stretch far beyond Ibrox and deep into the fabric of the game itself. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to get all the exclusive news about Rangers FC. Don't overlook any details about your beloved team. It's crucial for Rangers FC fans. As the speculation intensifies, the role of the supporters cannot be underestimated. Rangers fans, among the most passionate and vocal in the country, are ready to rally behind their club with a fervor that will amplify any message the board chooses to send. Social media is already ablaze with hashtags, memes, and impassioned posts, framing the club as a victim of institutional bias and calling for unity in defiance of the SFA. The mood is one of siege, a sense that the outside world is against them, and that only through solidarity can they fight back. This sentiment, once entrenched, becomes a powerful weapon because it transforms a disciplinary issue into a rallying cry, binding supporters, players, and leadership in a common cause. The SFA, of course, will argue that such unity is built on a false premise, but perception often outweighs fact in the world of football politics. And so, with the fan base primed for battle, any statement from Rangers is likely to land with the force of a thunderclap, energizing their followers while further polarizing the wider football community. Within the dressing room, meanwhile, the challenge is to keep focus on football itself. Players and coaching staff know that every word in the press will be magnified and twisted, and that questions about the SFA saga will follow them into post-match interviews regardless of performance. It becomes a distraction, one that can either galvanize a team into an us against the world mentality or weigh them down with the constant pressure of external noise. For the manager, this is a delicate balancing act, to acknowledge the storm without letting it overshadow preparations for crucial fixtures. History shows that Rangers are no strangers to adversity, and in many cases they have thrived when backs have been pressed against the wall. Yet the danger is that too much off-field drama saps energy, focus, and clarity at precisely the wrong time in the season. Thus, while the board prepares its explosive response, the coaching staff are quietly trying to shield the squad, knowing that what happens on the pitch remains the ultimate currency by which the club is judged. No matter how this confrontation unfolds, it is certain to become one of the defining storylines of the Scottish football season. The battle between Rangers and the SFA is not merely about words on paper or fines in the mail. It is about pride, power, and the soul of the game in a country where football is woven into the very fabric of identity. For the neutral observer, it promises all the ingredients of high drama, conflict, intrigue, and the constant sense that the next twist is just around the corner. For Rangers supporters, it is about standing tall against what they see as injustice. For the SFA, it is about proving they're the authority, unafraid to uphold standards even in the face of giants. When the dust eventually settles, one side will claim victory, but both will bear the scars of clash that has already ignited passions far beyond what anyone might have predicted. Until then, the footballing world waits with impatience, because everyone knows the storm is coming, and when it hits, The noise will echo far beyond the borders of Scotland. Greetings, fans. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as it's greatly appreciated by Rangers FC. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comment section below. Until the next video, stay tuned.